Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Mark Zimmerer, and I am your celebrant for today's service. Welcome to those joining us virtually here today. Hey, y'all. Worldwide audience out there, hello. And we're glad you're out there, and we're glad to have everybody here in person also. Whether you're joining us today for the first time or you've been a member since this congregation's early days, you are welcome here. Whatever the faiths you have known, if any, or whatever your heritage, you are welcome here. Whoever you are, whoever you love, you are welcome here. However you arrived at this blessed place, you are welcome here. We at Booth seek to make love visible in the world, to build a beloved, compassionate community, nurturing spirits, lifting hearts, challenging minds, and enacting justice. If that call speaks to your heart, you are welcome here. And in the spirit of our mission to build beloved community, centered around justice, equity, compassion, and interconnection, let us take a moment to acknowledge our gathering upon native land.
We come from and live on land considered sacred by indigenous people known as Bannock, Paiute, Shoshone, and many other tribes that lived here sustainably for thousands of years. We strive to understand and reframe our responsibilities to land, to community. In the spirit of respectful reciprocity, we honor the original caretakers of this place. We affirm the relationships we have to each other, including our relations to animals and insects that inhabit the water, land, and sky. We recognize the relationship, the responsibility to quiet creeks, rushing rivers, rustling grasses, to sprawling forests, to the brilliant palettes of the sky, to the roots that grip the soil, to the earth beneath our feet. Water is life. To all of us affected by the boarding school revelations, may we be granted compassionate understanding. May we find healing in the harm that lives in our history. We honor and support the right to sovereignty for our indigenous neighbors. We acknowledge that a land acknowledgement is not enough. Now, let us breathe together. Let us take a moment to enjoy the delicious air, the oxygen provided by tree. Hold to the warm light of sun. Consider the solidity, the groundedness of earth. Flow with refreshing, life-giving water. Let the mud settle. Find clarity of mind and spirit. Welcome our ancestors. Enjoy this present moment together.
I want to take a moment to welcome those newcomers among us. We know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're glad you've joined us today, wherever you are. For newcomers joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat so that our community can warmly welcome you. We'll also share a link to our newcomer forum in the chat so you can keep you up to date with all that's happening in this fellowship. For those newcomers joining us in person, we hope you'll stick around after the service to introduce yourselves. You can find a link to our newcomer forum using the QR codes on the bookmarks on your seat, which are not on seats today, but they are at the two front doors of the sanctuary. Our beautiful new coffee area is now open and ready for to-go coffee. Please feel free to grab a cup after the service, take it with you on your way home, or to take outside after the service today. And just a reminder that masks are still required at all times indoors for most people in the sanctuary, except the one up front, perhaps. We have a lot happening, from book groups to adult classes to meditations to neighborhood pods, both in person and online. And I do have a few announcements I want to highlight for the whole community. Next Sunday, June 26th, for Sunday morning worship, the deal on those days is the General Assembly theme for 2022. The last few years have not been easy, including in our local congregations. In this moment, when so many of us might be wondering if we should just give up and relent, now's the time instead to double down on our commitment to our local churches. This unique community that saves us and also breaks our hearts occasionally. In the midst of our culture of death, the church is a place of life, or it is as long as we are willing to bring our own lives to it. Join us for a moment of celebration, witness, and future visioning for the already and not yet power of the local Unitarian Universalist Church. Leading us in the worship will be Reverend Gretchen Haley, Reverend Sherry Halliday Quinn, Reverend Sean Neil Barron, Leah Morris, Adam Pod, Joseph and Amy Santos Lyons, and Allison King with the General Assembly Choir. It is our practice at the fellowship to donate 25% of our unpledged plate offering to support local social justice ministries. For the month of June, it is the Women's and Children's Alliance. Working for over 40 years, WCA has been at the forefront of providing services for those healing from domestic assault and domestic abuse and sexual assault. We no longer have a specific time during the service for collecting our offering, but there are many ways that you can make a gift. You can visit our website at boiseuu.org and click Giving at the top right corner of your screen. For those in person, you can get to our giving page through the QR code found at both front doors of the sanctuary, and you can feel free to take one of those with you. You can drop your check in lock boxes located at either entrance, and you can also download the Vanco Giving app on your smartphone. And of course, your checks by mail are always welcome. Our spiritual theme for the month of June is celebrating blessings. And today's service explores the idea of being a good neighbor and creating the greater or common good. Kevin Laughlin will be our guest speaker. Kevin is an Idaho master naturalist with the Sagebrush Steppe chapter in Boise. He is a gardener and a retired University of Idaho Extension professor. Kevin lives very close to our booth home, a couple blocks away, in fact, and I think you'll be very interested to hear his insights about our outdoor sanctuary. As we enter into this time of worship, let us take a moment again to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, and to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune into our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-driven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep, past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream. And I will add this today from Thich Nhat Hanh. With body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow. I listen. I listen. This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Oh, imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one.
Thank you, Mike. Wow, lovely. Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We join in this lighting in solidarity and community with thousands of other Unitarian Universalist churches lighting chalices today in their homes, churches, virtual worship spaces, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love. So if you have a chalice at home or a candle, you can take that out, of course, and light it now if you haven't already. See if I can make this as suspenseful as when a 5-year-old does it. With our collective chalices lit in all of our spaces, we offer you this call to worship from Meister Eckhart. When I was the stream, when I was the forest, when I was still the field, when I was every hoof, foot, fin, and wing, when I was the sky itself. No one ever asked me, did I have a purpose? No one ever wondered, was there anything I might need? For there was nothing I could not love. It was when I left all that we once were that the agony began. The fear and questions came, and I wept. I wept. And tears I had never known before. So I returned to the river. I returned to the mountains. I asked for their hand in marriage again. I begged to wed every object and creature. And when they accepted, God was ever present in my arms. And he did not say, "Where have you been?" For then I knew that my soul, every soul, has always held him. Come, let us worship together. And we have our time for all ages from Jen.
Good morning, everybody. Let's get cozy, settle into our seats for our time for all ages this morning. Our story today is We Are the Gardeners by Joanna Gaines and kids and illustrator Juliana Swaney. It's going to help us explore a couple of our principles and sources, the first being our fifth source, which calls us to be guided by our use of reason and the results of our experiments, as well as our seventh principle, calling on us to give care and respect to the web of life. I wonder if you have ever grown a plant or felt the resilience and joy that goes into caring for the nature that surrounds us. Our book is going to help us explore just this. Let's listen. We Are the Gardeners. That's a pretty official title, but we didn't start out this way. Just like our garden, we started small and grew from there. Some say a garden just grows from seeds, but we think it grows from trying and failing and trying again. A garden is hard work, but so is most of the good, important stuff in life. Our family's garden story began with one small potted fern. Dad stumbled upon it at the hardware store when he ran in for some supplies. He said it was just too cute to leave behind, and he thought it would make Mom smile. And it did. We chose a sunny windowsill for that pretty little fern. It seemed to be a safe, good spot for him to grow. This was way back when we were little kids, but we still remember visiting the plant each day to give him a drink, and sometimes we'd even whisper to him a bit. Here's everyone lined up with their watering cans ready to water him. And then, plot twist, out of nowhere, our fern died. Death by overhydration. That's just a fancy way of saying we gave him way too much water. Looking back, each of one of us must have watered him every day. That's a lot of drinks for a little plant. By mistake, we loved that plant to death. Some people tell themselves they are no good at something after one small failure, but no chance were we going to give up that easily. So we checked out some books from the library and found out that ferns can be tricky and prefer to live in a shady spot. Apparently, a plant's leaves can communicate to us what they are needing. We also learned that most plants have good manners and like to sip, not gulp. Lesson learned. Dad got us a fresh fern, and with it came fresh hope. This time, we set the pot on our piano, way on the other side of the room, where the sun wouldn't give him so much attention. We made a watering schedule and took turns saying a lot of nice things to our little sprout of a plant. And fern number 2 lived and thrived and grew, and finally Mom got him a little potted friend. And then another, and then 1 or 2 more. We noticed that talking to our plants actually helped them grow bigger and stronger, so we added some songs and jokes into the mix. Unlike when we overwatered, 0 plants died from us talking too much. Pretty soon, plants were taking over the house, and Dad said it was time to graduate to outdoor gardening. I wonder how many of you have an outdoor garden. Mom was excited about the new outdoor garden as we were, and she started talking about it with a dreamy look in her eyes. You can see her here imagining all the plants, the flowers and vegetables and fruits that she should grow. That is when Dad called a family meeting so we could come up with a real plan. We all gathered around the kitchen table and got to work dreaming, planning, and drawing things out. We knew we needed a sunny spot, a place where the plants could sunbathe for at least 6 hours a day. We'd be red as radishes if we did that, but plants just love it. And more than that, they need it. In the garden, there is no life without light. Here's a big plot, how much sun they'll get, how close each of the garden beds is to the water, or the shed, or the chickens. This is a good plan. Dad always says that the foundation is the most important thing when it comes to building a house. A house can't be strong if it's built on something weak, and the same holds true in the garden. So to make the foundation of our garden strong, we filled it with something called soil. Good soil, which includes a bunch of tiny living things called organisms, can grow things in it. That's pretty amazing when you stop to think about it. A whole hidden world of life is happening just beneath our feet. Just because you can't see the good things with your eyes doesn't mean they're not there. And another cool thing about soil is that it feeds and strengthens the seeds we sow, and then, like a miracle, plants and flowers burst out of the ground. There's so much life inside of soil. Something we should all appreciate. We also knew we needed our garden to get plenty of water. Rain is the very best things for plants to drink, but it's hard to know when and if rain is coming. So a couple other options to keep plants hydrated are to collect rainwater or use a sprinkler or garden hose to get the job done. And this is something that everybody has a role in helping to do. Everyone can help with that. Once we had a location with plenty of sun, good soil, and a watering plan, we got right to work. First things first, seeds. The most fun part of planning out our garden was deciding what to plant. We started with the foods we like to eat, like strawberries and tomatoes, and then we chose some pretty flowers to keep them company. The thing about seeds is that they're everyday miracles. Everything a plant will grow up to be is already hidden inside the seed. We chose flowers like zinnias, sunflowers, and cosmos so that the pollinators would visit our garden. Butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees spread pollen from flower to flower, encouraging even more things to bloom. We like knowing that little helpers are out there in nature, working with us to help this garden grow. The bees must have put word out that we had a pretty good thing going, because sure enough, all sorts of other critters started to arrive. We've quickly found out that there were 3 types of bugs in our backyard: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the worst part. It was a pretty sad day when the aphids arrived. They are some of the more well-known villains in the gardening world. They suck the life right out of the plants. But then the ladybugs showed up to eat those pesky aphids for lunch. Ladybugs are for sure part of the hero camp, bravely protecting our plant friends from harm. And we've got to tell you about earthworms. They are like the secret agents of the garden. Earthworms eat all of the dead things, like old roots and leaves, and turn them into life for the soil. Every time we found one, we would all high-five and celebrate. They aren't pretty, but who cares? They're awesome, and we love seeing them hard at work. We realized pretty quickly that we needed to keep the weeds out. They are the true bullies of the garden. Weeds try to steal sunlight, water, and nutrients from our fruits and veggies, and it's our jobs to make sure that those little rascals don't take over. If we ignore the garden for too long, the weeds run wild and hurt our beloved plants. It's so much easier to do just a little bit every day. We were officially gardeners and had a real-life garden to prove it. That garden became our pride and joy, day in and day out. We tended to our plants, making sure they got plenty of sunlight and water. Every time a new plant sprouted up from the ground, our excitement grew right along with it. As time passed, our garden grew bigger, and so did our family. When our garden was finally in full bloom and growing tall, we'd run through the aisles and watch the butterflies flutter around us. Now there are 5 kids in this family. But one day, as we were mid-skip, we noticed some trespassers helping themselves to lunch. And by lunch, we mean half of the garden. Animals may look cute and innocent, but some have a sneaky side. They can wipe out a garden in no time flat. The chickens ate the vegetables, the goats ate Mom's roses, and the bunnies weren't picky at all. They ate anything in sight. Saying goodbye to that many happy plants was even harder than throwing away our very first dead fern. We debated if we should just give up. Was it really worth it to start all over again? And then we remembered one very important detail. We are the gardeners. It is our responsibility not only to grow this garden, but also to protect it. So we put up a little fence to keep the animals out and got to work rebuilding our garden. These animals do look pretty happy helping themselves, though, but they have their own food. It didn't take long for our plants and our flowers to grow tall again. To this day, our very favorite days are when we get to gather the fruits of our labor.
Mom loves to set the table with pretty flowers in every color you can imagine. We help her dream up recipes for the food we've grown. Sometimes when we see all of that beauty laid out, we can't believe our hands helped bring it all to life, and it makes all the hard work worth it. It's what keeps us coming back, day after day, season after season. We still like to keep a little fern on the piano to remind us of our small beginnings. Every time we water it, we're reminded not to give up when things don't work out the first time. Because the thing is, whether one potted fern dies or half the garden is wiped out by little critters, every failure or setback teaches us something. Dad says that every hard thing we choose to do makes us braver for the next time. Join me now in blessing our beloved community, where together we choose the hard things and become braver for the next, where together we learn, grow, and live out our values.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
Sometimes, when a bird calls out, or the wind moves through the brush, or a dog barks in a distant farmland, I must listen a long time and hush. My soul flies back to where, before 1,000 forgotten years begin, the bird and the waving wind were like me and were my kin. My soul becomes a tree, an animal, a cloud woven across the sky. And then, changed and unfamiliar, it turns back and questions me. How shall I reply? Each week, we take time to acknowledge the many joys among us and to grieve our many sorrows and losses so that we might lift that burden for each other and receive the blessings of this community. A reminder that you, again, can submit your joys and sorrows online each week via the link on our website. Your bookmark QR code will take you right there. Our virtual community will continue to share joys and sorrows in the chat. We combine our collective joys and sorrows every month and share them in a community-wide email. It is through this sharing with one another that we forge deeper bonds of community and connection. I will share a personal joy. I came back a little early from our annual Booth camping trip up in Glens Ferry, which was a lot of fun. There were 30 or 40 people there, some of whom I haven't seen for quite a while. And joyfully, I got my first official sunburn of the 2022 season. And Greg and Val were up in Glens Ferry also. They are proud to announce that their daughter, Irene, will be a new trauma therapist at Terry Riley's Trauma and Resiliency Center in Boise. Aaron Moore and Brendan Leverins got married on Friday, June 17th. They are excited to be starting this next chapter of their lives together and honored to have fellow Booth member Carol Ogburn officiating their wedding. And we have this sorrow from Judy Frederick. My beautiful little Bella Jo died last week. She was 14, best puppy dog ever, and my last link to my beloved husband, Costin. She came to us from Booth, where she was a too active pup for Joe Douglas. Met my husband there too. Fertile ground for love. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name aloud into this community of love, that we may hold them with you. Carol. May the arms of this community hold all our joys and sorrows, those named and those that remain silent, close to our hearts. May we feel the grace that surrounds us and be transformed by the spirit of life and love, with warmth to celebrate our joys and with gentleness to soothe our aching hearts. Again, breathe with me. Fill your body with your breath. Breathe into this sacred space. Breathe with this beloved community filled with loving kindness. Breathe with wholeheartedness. Listen to what is calling you in the silence.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it's in giving that we receive, and it's in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it's in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
They told me I could take this off. Hi there. I'm your neighbor. I've been walking over here for over 20 years, live 2 blocks away. I have a garden over there, and I often meet people in the garden and walk here. There are 20 elements for spiritual direction here. The last 14 years, I have been an ecumenical spiritual director in your neighborhood. And I will meet people in the garden and pull some weeds as I listen to their story. And I say, let's get up and let's go walk over to Booth. It's an amazing space for greater good and common good. Did you know about it? And most of the people say, well, no. And I said, it's beautiful. There's over 5 acres there. And you know what? Even the congregation doesn't go outside. So I want to invite all of you, either the virtual ones or the ones that are here, to go outside today and enjoy our beautiful Treasure Valley, but also for those that are here to join us in that space a little bit later. I want to point out I am a master naturalist. I have been for 12 years now, and I'm part of the Sagebrush Step chapter, and that allows me the license to do fun stuff with adults and kids. And of course, I loved the presentation on the gardening because that's how I started to garden. My backpack here is over 20 years old, and what I normally do is put my backpack on and come over to Booth, and I have surprises on the inside. Are you ready for a surprise? Okay. Often I'm at the botanical garden, so this is my grow hat, and I've been a docent out there for 20 years teaching gardening to kids and adults. And today what I want to share with you is, and I believe they were going to have copies at the door. If you don't, you have Welcome to Booth Outdoor Sanctuary. Have any of you ever seen that? Okay, it's a handout that you have available from the office here, and there may be some outside in the doors. And it lists 12 of the original descriptions of what goes on. And I was introduced to Booth because I had some friends that said, Kevin, why don't you come on over? And in addition to that, I've been invited to help with your Quest program. Any of you Quest graduates or have gone through the Quest program? Okay. And one way for me to give back was to be one of the spiritual companions for the people in the Quest program. It's a great resource for your community. And in that, I learned the 7 principles. And these principles amplify what I hope for each one of you. Would you please stand up? And turn to any person you'd like to turn toward. And just say, thank you. Could you do it again? One more time. Now turn to somebody else. And what do you say? Thank you. Okay. So, or welcome. That's fine. All right, sit down. We've been sitting for a while. If the only thing you ever said was thank you, that would be enough. All right? And that's what I try to do each time I come here. I've worked with not thousands, but hundreds of individuals here at Booth. Being your neighbor brings to mind the music from the musical Pippin. We all need a space to be in, a corner of the sky, to be free, a place to dream. And the Booth campus, the sanctuary here, provides us that opportunity right here in Garden City, where everything has a season, everything has a time, you're shown a reason, and you soon are shown a rhyme. And that rhyme can be found in the trees, and the birds, and the butterflies that you find here. I wanted to make sure I mentioned today is Juneteenth, and recognize that that is an important celebration, our newest national holiday, which is tomorrow for many of the people that are civil service workers. And it took 2 full years for the people in Texas to learn about the Emancipation Proclamation and the freedom of the slaves. And sometimes we have to wait for good things to happen. And that's true with the gardens here and in our lives. And certainly with that gardening book we talked about, it was good. It's also Father's Day. I want to say thank you to the fathers that are here. Thank you for the fathers out there. And thank you for the grandfathers and the great-grandfathers, because without them, there wouldn't be us, right? Takes 2. The central focus of my sharing today is on being a good neighbor and what a great resource Booth has been for me. I'm grateful for the sacred grounds in the sanctuary, these 12 elements, and the 20 that I found. Each offers a concrete, kinesthetic metaphor for conversation and entering into meditation or contemplation. My reflection today is focused on just 3. The first one is the little Trollhaven Bridge. You know that one? Any of you ever stood on it? Did you find the troll? Did you find the troll? All right, well, I haven't seen her or him yet, but it keeps me mindful. The next one is the 4 directions and the concrete seats in Jeremiah's Adventure Garden, which is actually a medicine wheel, right? All right? And then finally, the green grove of trees. After the service and reception, I'm happy to walk outdoor sanctuary with you and share the commentary that I do with lots of folks for the last 20 years here. Each one is different and unique, and we live in the present moment, right? Be present moment people, because what I did 20 years ago is not what I do today. I came over last night and I met a couple that were managing and take care of Booth. And you have members of your congregation that I've met over the years in the gardens. I met some skateboarders last night in the garden at the Peace Pole, had a deep conversation with them and reminded them that this was a sanctuary. Thank you for maintaining this sanctuary. The little Trollhaven Bridge. The question I often ask when we cross the bridge is, I always go across the bridge and ask the person I'm walking with to stay on that site, what do you need to leave here? Is there something that you've been carrying for way too long that you need to let go of? And after a pause, they say, yeah, I've got it. I said, are you sure? Can you leave it there on the other side of the bridge and never come back and take it back? And some say, well, wait a minute, I may not want to do that. But they eventually get there. And then I say, what can you leave behind today for a week, for a year, for the rest of your life? And they jaunter across and they say, well, I said, how did that feel? And they said, well, that was pretty easy. I says, you got to come back here to reclaim it. And that's been real helpful to people. Many of you seen the movie Shrek? All right, you remember the trolls that are there? Okay, well, that's the troll that I think is under the bridge. I've not seen Shrek there or his girlfriend, but that's one. And then the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. How many of you remember that when you see Trollhaven? All right, so that would be the other one. And then finally, there's a famous Thomas Kincaid painting that comes to mind from Transylvania. And you know that bridge is mindful of the Booth tradition from Transylvania that came here. And the people that built the bridge also gave us some insights. So my invitation is to spend some time with the little bridge, mindful and intentional of its creators and say thank you. Okay? The next element I want to talk about is the 4 directions on Jeremiah's adventure. And what I do when I go there is I don't tell anybody where we're going from the bridge. I said, well, let's just sit down. We've been walking a while because it's about 3 blocks. They've crossed the bridge. They've left something behind. And now they're at the medicine wheel. And I said, well, just sit down. And I don't tell them where they're going to sit down. And I don't know where I'm going to sit down because every time it's different. Sometimes when we sit down, we try to do it the same way. And what I've learned is I never do. So you'll sit down either on wisdom, innocence, introspection, or illumination when you sit down, or in between. So I'll say, Teresa, you're between innocence and introspection. Is that where you're at right now in your life? And that always creates a great conversation. That site is a marvelous place to dream, to sing, to invite visions, and to evoke the dream oracle. So I brought the dream oracle invocation for you to learn about. This comes from the Greek and Roman mystery tradition. And it goes like this. Truest of oracles, we honor you north, south, east, and west. In the dark of night, through silent sleep, whisper in our minds. Waking, may we remember with insight to read our true destinies. Those mired in the world never see you, but sense something they fear. You give them no warnings, no counsel. By day, they are sleepwalkers. Friend to the awakened, fill us with creative fire, inspire us with beauty, reveal the hidden signatures of fate, help us avoid suffering, and give our souls wisdom to know the will of heaven and what the future holds. Then we'll walk down to the Green Grove. And in the Green Grove, I will learn about the sheltering tree. I'm mindful of all I learned at Project Learning Tree. And I learned a lot about, any of you lived in the Midwest, in Iowa or Missouri or Kansas or North or South Dakota or Wisconsin or Minnesota? All right, nobody here. How about out there? There's a book called Trees Against the Wind, and my master's degree was on windbreaks and shelter belts to keep the dust away. And trees protect us and provide us a great opportunity. What I want to invite you to do is to visit the grove of green and gray poplars that are out there. And I noticed this morning, do you know that that grove, the grandmother tree and the grandfather tree in that grove, has sent children out into your neighborhood? And I found them this morning in my walk over here, and I never noticed that before. It has gray underneath and green on top. And it gives us an opportunity to walk across a stream, remember the grandfather tree, to see death and life in the same tree, to hug a tree, adopt a tree, estimate the height and depth, the name of that tree, to come and visit that tree in all seasons, and to listen for the whispering, being with the tree's soul and spirit. And I want to invite you to do that with one tree that's out there if you haven't done it. And that way you're going to get out of the sanctuary here and into the woods. I want to close with my favorite author, Mary Oliver. And she has a reflection for us. When I'm among the trees, when I'm among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech and the oaks and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple, they say. And you two have come into the world to do this, to go easy and be filled with light and to shine. Thank you.
It's a Mary Oliver day. There's one more here. This one is called Song of the Builders. So, in the spirit of Kevin's talk, I also invite you to go do this someday. On a summer morning, I sat down on a hillside to think about God, a worthy pastime. Near me, I saw a single cricket. It was moving the grains of the hillside this way and that way. How great was its energy, how humble its effort. Let us hope it will always be like this, each of us going on in our inexplicable ways, building the universe.
Everything has its season, everything has its time. Show me a reason and I'll soon show you rhyme. Cat fits on the windowsill, children fit in the snow. So why do I feel I don't fit in anywhere I go? Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky. Every man has his daydream, every man has his goal. People like the way dreams have of sticking to the soul. Thunderclouds have their lightning, and nightingales have their song. And don't you see, I want my life to be something more than long. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky. So many men seem destined to settle for something small, but I won't rest until I know I've had it all. So don't ask where I'm going, just listen when I'm gone. Far away you'll hear me singing softly to the dawn. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Gotta find my corner of the sky.
Friends, I invite you to place your hands over your hearts for our closing blessing. Paraphrasing from Kevin's talk, Mary Oliver once again. It's simple, say the trees. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Blessed are we all. Go in peace. And a reminder that our new coffee area is open to grab a cup of coffee to go. Please be sure to respect physical distancing and keep your masks in place as you grab your coffee and take it with you. For all of those who are interested, take your coffee outside, and Kevin will be leading tours of the outdoor worship spaces, particular places on the Booth campus that I like to call the stations of our grounds. So please feel free to join us. Thank you all.